The morning sunlight barely broke through the Oregon clouds when Ruby Hale first sensed that something was wrong. She had woken early, the cool air drifting through her small apartment window, expecting a quiet day at the rescue shelter. But the moment she checked her phone, everything inside her dropped. Her notifications were exploding. Missed calls, messages, mentions from strangers. And then her breath caught at the first headline she saw. Runaway billionaire found with Oregon woman. Who is she? Ruby stared at the words as if they were in a foreign language. Her heartbeat quickened. She clicked the video attached beneath the headline. Grainy drone footage filled the screen, but unmistakable. A long, empty stretch of I-5 at dawn. A drenched man with messy dark hair standing in the rain, and a woman stepping out of a car, her hand reaching toward him. Her. Ruby gasped and clapped a hand over her mouth. The footage shifted to a zoomed-in still shot. Ruby's fingers intertwined with Adrian's as she helped him toward her car. It was the exact moment she had offered him safety, the exact moment she had not even known his name and had simply acted on instinct. The clip had millions of views already. Millions. Her throat tightened. Adrian was still asleep in the guest room down the hall. He had stayed the night after volunteering late with the animals, too tired to go back to Portland. Ruby had fallen asleep without worrying, without imagining this. She checked another notification. Aerial paparazzi. Reveal runaway groom with unknown Oregon woman. Ruby felt the room tilt. She sank onto her couch, trying to breathe steadily. Panic prickled up her spine. Someone had recorded them. Someone had tracked down their moment. Someone knew. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled. Comments flew across the screen. Who is this woman? Why was the billionaire groom with her? Did she help him escape? Is she part of something? Ruby swallowed hard. Her phone buzzed again. A voicemail from a number she did not recognize. Then another. Then 3 more. She put the phone face down on the couch and pressed her palms into her eyes, trying to steady her thoughts. Last night she had fallen asleep thinking life had finally settled after months of chaos. Adrian had found peace. She had found purpose. Together, they had built something gentle after so much storm. But now, the storm had found them again before the sun had even risen. She heard footsteps down the hall. Adrian's quiet voice drifted from the doorway. Ruby, you are up early. His hair was still tousled from sleep, the sweatshirt she had loaned him hanging loosely around his frame. He smiled for a moment before his expression shifted, eyes narrowing on the panic in her face. Ruby, what happened? She opened her mouth, but the words stuck. Instead, she reached for her phone, hands shaking, and handed it to him. Adrian took it slowly, reading the headline. The blood drained from his face. He scrolled through the footage, jaw tightening as the drone video played silently. His expression darkened into something she had never seen before, a mix of shock, guilt, protectiveness, and the painful recognition that his past had just crashed into their present. Ruby whispered, barely audible, "Someone filmed us." Adrian sank onto the arm of the couch, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, fingers gripping her phone so hard she feared it might crack. His voice was soft but full of regret. Ruby, I am so sorry. She shook her head quickly. You did nothing wrong. I chose to stop. I chose to help you. But Adrian's gaze lifted to hers, and there was a heaviness behind it. A weight born from years of dynasty pressure. They will twist that choice. They always twist things they cannot control. Ruby felt cold settle deep in her chest. What does this mean for you? Adrian exhaled, shaky. For me, it is exposure, embarrassment, a fresh scandal for a family I no longer belong to. But for you, Ruby felt her breath stumble. For me, Adrian set the phone down and moved closer, voice firm. Ruby, people like my father and people like the Armitage family have built their power on controlling narratives. They will come after anyone who disrupts that narrative. Even someone who did nothing but help a man in the rain. Ruby wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of the vulnerability of her small apartment. She felt exposed to a world she had never asked to face. The man who had fled an empire now sat beside her, powerless to stop it from reaching her. Her voice trembled. "What do we do now?" Adrian looked at her with a mixture of fear and fierce protectiveness. "We face it, together." Before Ruby could respond, there was a sudden knock at her door. Loud, aggressive. Ruby froze. Adrian stood slowly, body tense, senses alert. Ruby whispered, "Do not tell me." Adrian nodded grimly. Reporters, maybe more. Ruby's heart pounded. She had not even had time to process the headlines, and already the world was at her doorstep. Adrian stepped protectively between her and the door, his voice low, steady, determined. "Ruby, listen to me. No matter what happens today, none of this is your fault. You do not deserve this. You did not choose fame. You did not choose attention. You only chose kindness." But kindness had a cost, and now it was knocking on her door. Another bang, louder this time. Ruby stared at the door, then at Adrian. Her fear rose like a tide, but beneath it something steadier sparked. She had faced storms before. She had survived worse than headlines, and she was not going to shatter now just because the world discovered the truth of how they met. She stepped beside Adrian, her shoulder brushing his. "Ready," she whispered. Adrian nodded, eyes fixed on the door-jaw set with the quiet courage she had come to love. "Ready," he said. The morning the world found them was the morning they decided to stand together. The reporters did not leave. If anything, they multiplied. By the time Ruby and Adrian finally slipped out the back door of her apartment building and drove toward the shelter, the sidewalks were already crowded with vans, microphones, tripods, and people shouting her name as though she had become some kind of celebrity overnight. But this was not fame. It was exposure. By the time Ruby pulled into the gravel lot of the animal rescue shelter, her stomach was in knots. She had always cherished mornings here. The soft thumping of tails against kennel doors, the sleepy mews of kittens, the comforting sense that this place was a sanctuary for anything wounded. But today, the shelter did not look like a refuge. It looked like a target. News vans lined the street. Cameras pointed at the entrance. Reporters pressed against the chain-link fence, calling out questions that sounded like accusations. Ruby stepped out of her car, heart pounding. A microphone was shoved toward her immediately. "Ruby Hale, did you help Adrian Westbrook escape his wedding? Were you involved before he disappeared? Are you in a relationship with him?" Ruby flinched backward as two volunteers hurried toward her. Melissa and Jonah both looked shaken. Melissa grabbed Ruby's arms with wide, worried eyes. "Ruby, thank God you are here. Reporters have been outside since dawn." Jonah added, his voice low and anxious. "They have been interviewing neighbors, asking for security footage, demanding statements." Ruby's throat tightened. "I am so sorry you had to deal with this." Jonah shook his head nervously. "This is bigger than anything we have ever handled. People online are already saying you planned everything." Ruby's chest tightened. "Planned what?" Melissa held up her phone, showing Ruby comments flooding social media. She helped him run. She seduced the groom. She is manipulating him for money. Ruby blinked in disbelief. "I did nothing wrong." Melissa squeezed her hand. "We know, but the internet does not care." Jonah looked past Ruby toward the car, noticing Adrian stepping out, hood pulled low, shoulders tight with tension. "And that is going to make it worse." In an instant, the reporters surged toward the fence, shouting even louder, trying to film Adrian. Adrian ignored them, walking straight to Ruby, placing his hand lightly on her back as if he could shield her from the noise. But that gesture only fueled the frenzy. Reporters screamed questions about their relationship. Rumors. Motives. Power imbalance. One voice cut through sharply. "Adrian, why are you staying with her? Is she controlling you?" Ruby felt her breath catch in shock. "What?" Adrian tensed, jaw hardening. "They think I am controlling you," Ruby whispered. Adrian shook his head grimly. "They will twist anything to make you look dangerous or manipulative. That is how this world works." Melissa pulled Ruby closer. "We cannot work like this. The animals are terrified. Volunteers are scared to come in. Donors are messaging nonstop, asking if the shelter is involved in some scandal. Ruby felt the weight of the chaos settle over her like a heavy, wet coat. She had fought for years to keep this place alive. She had begged for grants, fundraised at farmer markets, worked double shifts. And now people with cameras were threatening to tear it apart simply because she had offered a stranger a ride in the rain. Adrian stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "I will handle the reporters." Melissa shook her head, panicked. "If you step out there, it will get worse. They already think you are some rich guy taking advantage of her." Ruby swallowed hard. "Adrian, please do not." But he looked at her with that same protective determination she had seen on the night they escaped the shelter. "I will not let them attack you alone," he said quietly. "You should not have to face the consequences of my past." Ruby's heart squeezed painfully. The fence rattled as reporters pushed forward, shouting for attention. Melissa's phone buzzed again. Ruby glanced down and froze. Elise Armitage had sent her a message. Not a call, not a voicemail. A single text from an unknown number. "They will come after you next." Ruby stared at it, blood running cold. Elise had no reason to warn her. No reason to reach out, unless she truly knew what was coming. Adrian noticed her expression and stepped closer. "Ruby, what is it?" She showed him the message. His face paled. "If Elise is warning you," he said quietly, "then this is not just gossip anymore. This is a coordinated attack." Jonah spoke up, his voice cracking. "Ruby, I am sorry, but people are already saying the shelter should fire you for bringing trouble." Ruby's chest tightened with something sharp and painful. "I did not bring trouble. I just helped someone." But the world did not care. Kindness was the easiest thing to twist. Adrian looked at the reporters with cold anger rising behind his eyes. "I am not letting them destroy your life," he said. Ruby shook her head fiercely. "You cannot fight the press. You cannot fight entire dynasties." Adrian met her gaze firmly. "Watch me." She felt the tremor of fear run through her. "You stepping into this will make them think you are controlling me," she whispered. "And then the narrative will become even worse. It already is." Adrian looked at her with a mixture of guilt and fierce devotion. "I dragged you into this. I will not let you drown because of me." Ruby looked at him and saw a man trying to stand between her and a storm that had already swallowed both of them, but the storm was bigger than either of them imagined. Ruby whispered, "Adrian, I cannot let you fight the world alone." The reporters grew louder. The shelter dogs started barking. Volunteers huddled inside, uncertain and afraid. Ruby realized that the cost of being seen with a billionaire was not glamour or privilege. It was scrutiny, accusation, threats, and humiliation. But in the middle of the chaos, Adrian reached for her hand gently but with certainty. Ruby looked down at his fingers weaving through hers, and for a moment the noise faded. Even if the world had found them, she thought maybe they could still choose how to face it. Together. Ruby had expected the reporters to make her life difficult. She had expected gossip, speculation, maybe even a few strangers digging through her old social media posts. But she had never expected to be served. Not like this. Not in front of the shelter. Not in front of her volunteers. The moment the black sedan rolled up to the curb and a man in a gray suit stepped out carrying a folder, Ruby felt something cold slip down her spine. He walked straight toward her with calm legal precision. "Ruby Hale," he asked. She hesitated, glancing at Adrian, who stood beside her. "I have documents for you. You are being named as a defendant in a civil action filed by the Armitage family." Ruby blinked. "I am sorry. What? Sorry." The man handed her the thick envelope. "Service of process. Please confirm your identity by signing here." Ruby stared at the paper, then at the man, then at the envelope again, as if the entire moment had come from the wrong universe. A lawsuit. Against her. For what? Adrian stepped forward sharply. "You cannot be serious. She has nothing to do with the Armitage family." The server lifted a brow, unimpressed. "The complaint will explain everything. Have a good day." Then, he walked back to the car as if he had just dropped off a pizza, instead of detonating a bomb in Ruby's life. Ruby slowly opened the envelope, hands trembling. Adrian hovered beside her, his breath tense in his chest. The title of the document hit her like impact. Armitage versus Ruby Hale, a claim for collusion and interference with a corporate marriage agreement. Ruby read the words twice before her brain finally understood them. Interference. With a corporate marriage. Collusion. She looked up at Adrian, stunned. "They are suing me for ruining your wedding." Adrian snatched the papers, scanning quickly, his face turning storm gray. "This is ridiculous. You did not interfere with anything. I was the one who ran. You did not even know who I was." Ruby swallowed hard, but her voice wavered. "They are saying I helped you escape." Adrian looked like someone had hit him in the chest. "You saved me in a storm. That is all. You did nothing wrong." She kept reading, though every line felt more surreal than the last. "They are accusing me of conspiring with you to damage their merger." Adrian choked on a bitter laugh. "A conspiracy. You did not even have my last name." Jonah hurried out from inside the shelter, eyes wide. "Ruby, what is happening?" She held up the papers numbly. "I am being sued. For helping someone in the rain." Melissa covered her mouth. "Oh my God." Adrian took the packet from Ruby, gripping it like it was something he wanted to tear apart. He read through the accusations, each one more insulting than the last. Damage to a corporate agreement valued in billions. Intentional disruption. Emotional distress to the bride. Collusion to dismantle an intercompany merger. Ruby pressed her hands to her forehead. "Adrian, this is insane. They cannot possibly expect a judge to take this seriously." Adrian inhaled through his nose, trying to steady his rising fury. "Ruby, you live in the United States. People have sued fast food chains for serving hot coffee. Armitage believes money can make any lie look like truth." Ruby's stomach twisted. "But I do not have money. I do not even own this building. I cannot fight something like this." Adrian's expression softened instantly. "Ruby, I will take care of everything. The legal fees, the lawyers, all of it." Ruby stepped back sharply, shaking her head. "No, absolutely not." Adrian looked stunned. "Ruby, this lawsuit is meant for me. You should not pay for my past." But she raised a trembling hand, stopping him. "Adrian, if I let you pay for my defense, guess what that looks like?" "It looks like I am dependent on you. It looks like you are controlling me. It looks exactly like what the reporters are saying." The words hit him hard. He stepped back as though absorbing the truth. Ruby placed the papers against her chest, feeling them like a weight. "I will not let the world say I am with you for money. If I let you fix this for me, then all of it becomes real. Every lie they are spreading." Adrian raked a hand through his hair, looking agonized. "Ruby, this is not about money. This is about justice. About protecting you." She shook her head, her voice steady, even as fear rippled under her ribs. "No, it is about integrity. If I take your money, then they win. The dynasty wins. Armitage wins. They get to say I'm exactly what they want me to be." Adrian whispered. "Ruby, please." "I watched what my family did to people who depended on them. I watched them trap people with financial favors. I watched them twist every act of generosity into leverage. I will never do that to you." Ruby felt tears prick her eyes, but she inhaled deeply. "You would not. I know that. But they will make it look like you are, and I am not letting them define our story." Adrian's shoulders slumped, the weight of helplessness dragging him down. "I do not want you to fight this alone." Ruby looked up at him, voice softer now, but filled with truth. "I am not alone. Not as long as you are standing beside me. But I cannot let you pay for my fight. I will not give them that power." Adrian closed the distance between them, gently taking her hands. "Ruby, this lawsuit is not about justice. It is about intimidation. They are hoping to scare you, break you. Scare me into running from you," she whispered. Adrian nodded tightly. "Yes." Ruby lifted her chin. "Then they do not know who they are dealing with." Adrian stared at her with awe and fear and love all tangled together. Reporters continued shouting outside the fence. Volunteers whispered anxiously. The shelter dogs barked in confusion, but in the middle of the chaos, Ruby stood with a lawsuit in her hand and a quiet strength in her spine. She met Adrian's eyes. "I am not giving up on this, or on you," Adrian whispered. "Ruby, you deserve so much more than this nightmare." She squeezed his hands gently. "Maybe, but I also deserve to choose who I stand beside, and I choose you." His breath caught. The lawsuit lay heavy between them, not as a threat, but as a battle line. Ruby exhaled slowly. "I will fight this, on my terms." Adrian nodded with raw emotion. "Then I am here, however you need me." Ruby whispered, "Then stand with me." And that was enough. Ruby noticed the man on the sidewalk long before he approached her. He wore a dark jacket despite the warm afternoon and stood too still for someone pretending to scroll through his phone. His eyes were the sharp kind that memorized faces in seconds. She felt a prickle of unease but tried to ignore it as she carried a box of supplies from the shelter's back entrance. The man waited until she was alone, then stepped directly into her path. "Ruby Hale?" he asked in a voice smooth enough to sound polite yet cold enough to feel like a blade. Ruby tightened her grip on the box. "Who is asking?" The man offered a smile that never reached his eyes. "My name does not matter. What matters is that I work for people who would like a few answers." Adrian rounded the corner just in time to see Ruby stiffen. He quickened his pace. "Excuse me, who are you?" The man did not flinch. "Mr. Westbrook, I was hoping to speak with you as well." Adrian stepped in front of Ruby, instantly his posture shifting into quiet defense. "If you want to talk, you talk to me." The investigator folded his hands behind his back, studying Adrian with faint amusement. "I am conducting an inquiry on behalf of the Armitage family." Ruby exhaled sharply. "Of course you are." Adrian's jaw flexed. "They have no right to harass her." The investigator tilted his head. "Harass? No. I am simply gathering facts." Ruby crossed her arms. "What kind of facts?" The man took a step closer, his tone light but probing. "For example, your history, your finances, your relationships, your employment record, your previous addresses, your past legal issues." Ruby blinked. "I do not have past legal issues." "Not yet," the man murmured. Adrian stepped forward, fists clenched. "Say one more threatening thing and I will have you removed from this property." The investigator held up a hand. "Removal is unnecessary. I am only here to inform Miss Hale that if she refuses to cooperate, I will simply speak to her neighbors, her co-workers, her family." Ruby felt a sudden tremor move through her. He continued softly. "And if they refuse, I will access public records, employment files, housing documents. I will find what I need. Not because she has done anything wrong, but because the Armitage family believes she has." Adrian moved like he might actually hit the man. "Stop talking. Right now." But the investigator only smiled again. People get very talkative when they think they can help someone powerful, and the Armitage family is very powerful. Ruby felt her stomach knot. "I have nothing to hide." The investigator nodded. Everyone says that, until someone finds something they did not expect. A misunderstanding, an unpaid bill, a mistake from years ago, something small, but small things become big things when filtered through the right narrative. Ruby swallowed hard but steadied herself. "I will not be intimidated." The man's gaze flicked briefly to Adrian. "You are already in danger because of him." Adrian stepped closer, voice low and furious. "She is in danger because of you." The investigator patted his jacket pocket as if checking for something. "My employers asked me to pass along a message." Ruby's blood ran cold. "What message?" He paused long enough to make the moment feel stretched thin. "They will not stop, not until Ruby Hale is discredited, disgraced, or gone." Adrian grabbed the man's arm, but the investigator slipped away with practiced ease. "Threatening me will not help your situation, Mr. Westbrook. It will only expedite certain outcomes." Then he walked off slowly, like he had all the time in the world. Ruby exhaled shakily, leaning against the wall. Adrian turned to her immediately. "Ruby, I am so sorry. This is my fault." She shook her head fiercely. "No, you did not hire him. Your family did." He cupped her shoulders gently. "Ruby, they are digging for anything they can twist, anything to turn the world against you." She stared at the sidewalk where the investigator had stood, wondering how a normal life could unravel so quickly. "What if they find something?" she whispered. "Something small that looks bad out of context." Adrian held her face in both hands, his thumbs brushing her cold cheeks. "Ruby, listen to me. You are good. You are brave. You have nothing to be afraid of." She closed her eyes, breathing in the steady warmth of him, but fear still wrapped around her like invisible fingers. That night, Adrian took Ruby to a quiet lake on the outskirts of Portland, somewhere far from cameras, drones, and investigators. The air smelled like pine and cold water. The sky reflected orange and lavender as the sun sank low. Ruby stood near the shoreline, arms wrapped around herself. "I hate that he knew things about me," she murmured. "Things he should not." Adrian stepped behind her, not touching but close enough that his presence warmed her. "Investigators like him always try to get in your head. Their job is to find fear and pry it open." She stared at the rippling water. "He said they would destroy my reputation, my life, my dignity." Adrian moved closer, unable to watch her struggle alone. "Ruby, look at me." She turned slowly, tears threatening. Adrian's eyes softened. "You are not alone. You will never be alone again." She could not respond. Her throat felt too tight. He hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. Ruby leaned into the touch before she could stop herself. Adrian's voice dropped to a whisper. "They can try to twist everything, but they cannot twist who you are." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "And who am I?" Adrian swallowed. "You're the first person who ever saw me, really saw me," Ruby exhaled shakily. "Adrian." There was so much fear in her voice, fear of losing him, fear of losing herself, fear of a world too powerful for them to fight. Adrian stepped even closer. Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling in the cool air. "You do not have to be strong right now," he whispered. "Let me be strong for you." Ruby's voice broke. "I am scared." "I know," he said softly. Then, without thinking, without calculation, Adrian leaned forward and kissed her. It was not desperate. It was not urgent. It was a slow, quiet kiss, as if he were memorizing the moment. Ruby melted into him, her fingers curling into his shirt, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her closer. It was a kiss that said, "I see you. I choose you. I am here." When they finally pulled apart, Ruby pressed her forehead to his chest, breathing deeply as though grounding herself. Adrian held her gently, like she was the first true thing he had ever touched. And for a moment, the world felt still, safe, real. But Ruby whispered through the silence, "Adrian, what if they destroy everything?" He tightened his hold around her. "Then we rebuild everything, together." The sun slipped behind the trees, casting soft shadows across the lake as if sealing their promise in the fading light. Ruby arrived at the shelter early the next morning, hoping the quiet would calm her nerves, but the moment she stepped inside, she sensed something was off. Jonah and Melissa stood near the front desk, whispering urgently. When they saw her, they froze as if caught doing something forbidden. Ruby set her bag down slowly. "What is going on?" Jonah hesitated, then handed her his phone. "Someone wants to see you." Ruby frowned until she saw the message on the screen. A location pin, a time, an anonymous sender. Melissa whispered, "It is her." Ruby felt her pulse spike. Who? Elise Armitage. The bride from the wedding Adrian ran from. The woman the entire world believed Ruby had stolen a billionaire from. Ruby's throat tightened. "This has to be a trap." Melissa shook her head. "She said she has something really important. Something you need to see." Ruby stared at the message again, a simple sentence typed beneath the address. "Come alone. She can ruin you or save you." Ruby inhaled deeply. "I have to go." Jonah grabbed her arm. "Ruby, this could be dangerous." She forced a small smile. Everything in my life already is. Adrian arrived moments later from getting coffee. The moment he saw Ruby's face, he stopped cold. What happened? Ruby swallowed. Elise wants to meet. Adrian's expression went from confusion to dread instantly. Ruby, no. Elise is not the enemy, but the family controls her. They could be using her. Ruby touched his hand softly. I need answers, and I need to know the truth from her. Adrian wanted to argue, but the determination in Ruby's eyes silenced him. He exhaled shakily. Promise me you will call if anything feels wrong. Ruby nodded, then left before she could lose her courage. The meeting point was an old greenhouse at the edge of town, cracked glass fogged over from years of disrepair. The air inside smelled of wet soil and abandoned plants. Ruby pushed the door open cautiously. Elise stood in the center, wearing jeans and a sweater instead of the designer gowns America knew her for. Her blonde hair was pulled back simply, her eyes red as though she had not slept. Ruby's breath caught. Elise looked nothing like the cold, elegant heiress the media painted. She looked young, tired, alone. Elise whispered Ruby Hale. The woman who ruined my wedding. Ruby stiffened. I did not ruin anything. Elise raised a hand. I know. That is why I asked you to come. Ruby blinked. You know? Elise's voice cracked. I was never supposed to marry Adrian. Not like that. Ruby stepped closer cautiously. Why are you telling me this? Elise looked around the empty greenhouse as if afraid the plants might be listening. Because they are going to destroy you, to punish him. Ruby felt a chill run through her. Who? Elise's jaw trembled. My father. Adrian's father, the board, the lawyers, the shareholders, all of them. They need someone to blame. Ruby whispered, but I did nothing. Elise laughed bitterly. They do not care. They only care about control and narrative. And right now the narrative is that you are the girl who helped a billionaire run from a multi-billion-dollar merger. Ruby whispered, I tried to tell them I did not know who he was. Elise nodded slowly. They do not believe you. And they will make sure no one else does either. Ruby swallowed hard. Then why help me? Elise looked her straight in the eyes. Because I am not the villain. I am just another prisoner. Ruby's breath caught. Elise reached into her bag, pulling out a small flash drive. She held it with both hands as if it were fragile or dangerous or both. This, she whispered, is what they are terrified of. Ruby stared at the tiny object. What is it? Elise took a shaking breath. A video recording from a board meeting 2 months ago. My father and Lionel Westbrook discussing the merger. Discussing forcing Adrian into the wedding contract. Discussing me as a bargaining chip. Ruby froze. They recorded that. Elise nodded. Adrian does not know. Neither does the press. Or the lawyers. If this gets out, the marriage contract becomes invalid. The lawsuit disappears. The narrative collapses. Everything they built burns. Ruby whispered, Why, give it to me instead of Adrian. Elise blinked, tears gathering at the corner of her eyes. Because if Adrian has it, they will assume he leaked it. They will come for him harder. They will say he used me, lied to the board, plotted with you. They want to paint him as unstable already. But you, Ruby, you are nobody in their world. You are invisible. If you leak it, they cannot tie it back to him. Ruby's heart pounded. But if they find out I had it, Elise looked away, voice trembling. Then they will destroy you. Ruby felt the weight of the flash drive multiply in her palm. Why are you risking everything? Lisa's expression softened in a way Ruby had not expected. Because you saved him, and I could not. Ruby inhaled sharply. Lise whispered, I saw how he looked at you on the road. I saw it on the news drone footage. That was not fear. That was freedom. Something he never had with me. I deserve someone who chooses me. And so does he. Ruby's throat tightened painfully. Elise took Ruby's hand, folding her fingers around the flash drive. Please use this, or none of us get free. Ruby nodded slowly. I will. Elise exhaled shakily. Relieved, but also terrified. Be careful, Ruby. They are already watching you. Ruby left the greenhouse feeling the weight of the truth pressing on her chest. Adrian was waiting in her car, pacing beside it, his hair wild from running his hands through it. When he saw her, he rushed over. "Ruby, are you okay? What happened?" Ruby hesitated, then pressed the flash drive into his hand. "She told me everything." Adrian stared at the tiny device, stunned. "What is this?" Ruby whispered. "The evidence that can take down both families." Adrian's breath caught. He closed his hand around the drive, trembling. "Ruby, what did she tell you?" Ruby looked at him, a mixture of fear and resolve filling her eyes. "Everything." Adrian's expression shifted slowly from confusion to horror to dawning hope. Something huge and dangerous had changed. Ruby took a deep breath, looking out at the sky that seemed far too calm for the storm about to come. Adrian whispered, "Ruby, are you sure about this?" She nodded. "If we do nothing, they win. If we do something, they will come for us." Adrian closed the distance, pulling her into a tight, trembling embrace. "Then we face them, together." Ruby pressed her forehead to his chest, the flash drive between them like a live pulse. She whispered, "Then let us begin." Ruby thought she understood pressure. She thought she knew what fear felt like. But nothing in her life had prepared her for the next 48 hours after Elise handed her the flash drive. It began quietly, the way earthquakes sometimes start, with a faint vibration beneath the floorboards. The first sign came when she arrived at the shelter and found a yellow notice taped to the door. "Funding review pending immediate suspension." Jonah ripped it down before she could touch it. "This has to be a mistake." Ruby stared at the paper, her chest tightening. "The Westbrook Foundation funds half our medical equipment." Melissa read the notice, her voice shaking. "They are suspending all contributions until further notice." Adrian appeared moments later, breathless from running across the parking lot. "I just saw the alert on my phone." "Ruby, this is my father. He is making the first move." Ruby closed her eyes, fighting the surge of dread. Of course he was, but she was not ready for how fast everything escalated. By noon, 3 reporters were stationed outside the shelter gates. By 3:00, there were 11. By sunset, an entire barricade of cameras had formed. They shouted, "Ruby Hale! How long have you known Adrian Westbrook? Is it true you manipulated him? Did you help him run from his wedding? Are you in a relationship? Is this about money?" Ruby flinched at every question. Jonah tried to shield her with his arms. Melissa pushed people back, but the crowd thickened like a storm cloud gathering power. Adrian rushed to her side, gripping her hand tightly. "Ignore them. Do not answer anything," Ruby whispered. "This is because of the video." Adrian nodded, jaw clenched. "They know something is wrong. They can smell it." But it was not until evening that the real blow landed. Ruby was sitting in the staff room, her head in her hands, when Melissa burst in, holding her phone pale as paper. "Ruby, you need to see this." Melissa handed her the screen, already shaking. The headline, scrolling across every major American news outlet, read, "Ruby Hale manipulated runaway groom to sabotage. Multi-billion-dollar merger. Says Westbrook, patriarch." Ruby froze, the blood draining from her face. Adrian stormed to her side, snatching the phone. He read the headline aloud in disbelief, then his voice went low. "Dangerous." "My father," the article quoted Lionel Westbrook directly. "My son is emotionally fragile and was exploited by a woman who saw an opportunity." The Hale woman positioned herself to influence him during a moment of weakness, twisting his grief and confusion into an escape plan that has cost our family dearly. Ruby's breath shattered. "They are saying I preyed on you." Adrian's hands shook with fury. "They are trying to smear you before the truth comes out." Ruby stared at her reflection in the dark phone screen, barely recognizing herself. "Am I really that easy to destroy?" Adrian knelt in front of her, taking her face in his hands. "Ruby, look at me." His voice broke. "You did not manipulate me. You saved me. You saw me, and that terrifies them." Ruby's tears spilled, but she shook her head. "Adrian, your father just told the entire country that I am some kind of gold-digging puppeteer." Jonah and Melissa hovered in the doorway, looking helpless, tears in their own eyes. Ruby forced herself to stand, gripping the table for balance. What do I do? How do I fight a billionaire family with their own media empire? Adrian stepped closer, determination blazing in his eyes. You do not fight them alone. We expose them, tonight. Ruby held up her hand, trembling. No, not yet. If we release the video now, it looks like retaliation. It looks like we are playing dirty. They will twist it. Adrian breathed hard, trying to calm himself. Then, what do you want to do? Ruby closed her eyes, letting the fear burn and transform into something sharp, something clear. I want to stay one step ahead. I want them to think I am broken, that I am scared, that I am backing down. Then when they least expect it, we show the world the truth. Adrian stared at her in awe. You are braver than you think. Ruby looked out the window at the glowing camera lights invading her once quiet life. Am I? Because right now I feel like I'm falling apart. Adrian moved to her side, gently threading his fingers through hers. Then fall. I will catch you. Ruby swallowed hard, leaning into him for just a moment before stepping away. I need air. She walked outside, ignoring the reporters who shouted her name. She stepped behind the shelter where the dusk air smelled like pine and asphalt. She needed a minute to breathe, but she had barely closed her eyes when she sensed it. Someone watching her. She spun around. A man stood near the corner of the building, holding a camera with a massive lens. He clicked the shutter rapidly. Ruby raised her arm. Stop. Do not take pictures of me back here. This is private property. The man only smiled. Nothing is private anymore, sweetheart. Ruby froze. You cannot be here. Watch me, he said coldly, and tell your billionaire boyfriend I have plenty more if he wants them. Ruby's stomach twisted. What pictures? The man shrugged casually. The ones of you crying into his chest, and kissing him, and holding his hand at the lake. The world is going to love them. Ruby stepped back as if struck. How do you know about the lake? The man grinned. Because you are not the only one being followed, darling. Adrian is too. Ruby felt sick. They were everywhere. Watching everything, twisting every moment, every truth, every touch, every breath. Adrian burst out the back door, his voice sharp. Get away from her. The photographer laughed. Or what? Adrian strode toward him, but Ruby grabbed his arm. Adrian, do not. That is what they want. The man walked off whistling, leaving a trail of dread behind him. Adrian turned to Ruby, his face full of guilt. I am so sorry, Ruby whispered. This is not your fault, but she could feel it now, the dynasty closing in from all sides. The flash drive felt heavier in her pocket than ever. Ruby exhaled shakily as the lights from the shelter flickered behind her. Adrian looked at her as though searching for the one part of her that was not breaking. Ruby whispered, Adrian, this is only the beginning. He nodded, pulling her into his arms. I know, and I am not leaving. Not now, not ever. But Ruby did not tell him the truth, forming quietly in her heart. That the more they attacked her, the more she believed she might have to do the one thing she never thought she would. Leave him to save him. Ruby barely slept that night. She lay awake in the tiny room behind the shelter, listening to the wind push against the windows and the distant clicking of reporters' cameras outside the fence. Every few seconds, a flash lit up the wall like lightning. Adrian had insisted on staying nearby, but she sent him home because she needed space to think and breathe, though breathing felt harder than ever. She replayed the investigators' threats. Lionel Westbrook's cruel statement, the swarm of reporters, the photographer hiding behind the building, and the notice cutting the shelter's funding. Every piece pointed to one truth. They were not just attacking her, they were attacking anything Adrian cared about. And she was now the easiest, cheapest target. By morning, Ruby felt a dull trembling inside her chest, like something loosening. Something sliding toward a decision she did not want to make. She stepped out of the staff room and found Melissa already in tears. Ruby book. Melissa held out her phone. Overnight, a new headline had gone viral across every major platform. Billionaire groom manipulated by Oregon woman. Exclusive footage of their secret relationship. Below it were photos of Ruby and Adrian at the lake. Ruby kissing him with trembling hands. Adrian holding her like she was the only safe thing in his world. Their most private moment turned into public ammunition. She pressed a hand over her mouth. Who took these? Melissa whispered, "They are saying we leaked them. They are saying you staged everything." Jonah burst into the room, pale and shaking. "Ruby, corporate donors are pulling out. Half the volunteers are quitting because they are scared the shelter will be shut down. The dogs need medications we cannot afford. The cats cannot get their tests this week." Ruby felt the walls close in. They were destroying the place she loved. Because of her. No, because of Adrian. Or more accurately, because she cared about Adrian. Jonah grabbed her shoulders. "Ruby, we can fight this. We can get statements. We can do a press conference." But she could barely hear him. All she could hear was Lionel Westbrook's voice on the news calling her a manipulator. All she could see were the reporters camped outside waiting to destroy whatever was left of her life. All she could feel was Adrian's arms around her the night before and the hollow promise she had whispered, that she would not let herself destroy his life. She inhaled a trembling breath. "I need to take a walk." Jonah and Melissa exchanged a look of fear but let her go. Ruby stepped out the back door and walked until the shelter was no longer visible. She found a spot near the river where the morning light reflected off the surface like quiet silver. This place had always calmed her, but today even the river seemed to ask her a question she did not want to answer. "How many people will suffer because you stay with him?" Ruby whispered aloud as if the wind might answer, "What am I doing to him?" She was lost in thought when she heard footsteps on the path. Adrian. His voice was raw. "Ruby, I have been calling you." She turned slowly. His hair was messy from running, his chest rising and falling fast. He looked at her like she was the one anchoring him to the world. "Please, do not disappear on me," he pleaded. "Not today, not after last night." Ruby felt her heart fracture. Adrian stepped closer, gently taking her hands. "We will get through this, I swear to you. I do not care what the press says. I do not care what my father does. I am not losing you." Ruby pulled her hands back. "Adrian, we need to talk." His face fell instantly. That sentence had never meant anything good for anyone. Ruby swallowed hard. "Adrian? They are destroying the shelter. They are tearing apart everything around me. They are hurting people who have nothing to do with this. They are hurting you?" Adrian stepped forward, desperation in his voice. "Ruby, none of that is your fault. It is my family, my past, my world." She looked at him with heartbreaking tenderness. "But I walked into it, and now they are tearing apart yours too." Adrian shook his head fiercely. "No, you are the only part of my life that feels real. You are the only thing I am sure of." She closed her eyes, fighting tears. "Adrian, I cannot watch them do this to you." He grabbed her arms gently but firmly. "Ruby, listen to me. I have lived under their control my whole life. I can handle their attacks, but I cannot handle losing you." She stepped back, breaking the contact. "That is exactly why I have to go." Adrian stared at her as if she had just ripped out the air he needed to breathe. "What do you mean, go?" Ruby forced herself to stay steady, even though every cell in her body screamed to stay in his arms. "I am leaving Portland. Tonight." Adrian froze. "Ruby, no, absolutely not." She held up her trembling hand. "If I stay, they will keep hurting you. They will keep tearing down the shelter. They will destroy the people around me. They will turn your world into ashes." Adrian shook his head violently. "Ruby, I will fight them. I will fight all of them. I am not afraid." She whispered, "That is the problem. I am. For you, for everyone." Adrian's voice cracked. "Ruby, please, do not do this." Her tears finally spilled. "I love you too much to watch you get destroyed because of me." Adrian staggered back as if she had struck him. The wind rustled through the trees, but neither of them moved. Ruby took a deep breath, her voice almost breaking. I need to disappear for a while. Let the noise die down. Let the dynasty focus on their merger again. Let everything calm. Adrian reached for her hand, but she pulled it away gently. Please, do not, because if you touch me, I will not be able to leave. Adrian's voice shook like something inside him was breaking open. Ruby, I cannot lose you again. I cannot lose the only person who ever saw me. Ruby stepped closer just enough to press a soft kiss to his forehead. A goodbye, a promise, a prayer. You will not lose me, but we cannot win if I stay. Adrian's breath came in sharp fragments. When? When will you come back? She swallowed. When it is safe. When you are free. When they cannot use me against you. Adrian grabbed her arms, finally letting his fear show. Ruby, please, let me come with you. Ruby's voice cracked. No, you need to stay and fight for yourself, for your freedom, for the life you deserve. If you come with me, they will track you, they will follow you, they will destroy you trying to reach me. Adrian's eyes filled. Ruby, please, do not walk away from me. She whispered, I am not walking away. I am walking so you can stand. She stepped back, then another step. Adrian reached for her but stopped himself as if touching her might shatter both of them. Ruby turned before she lost her courage. She did not look back because she knew if she saw his face, she would break completely. Adrian whispered after her, voice barely audible in the wind. Ruby, please stay. But she kept walking, tears falling silently until the river and Adrian and everything she loved blurred into silver. That night, she left Portland without telling anyone where she was going. Only Jonah found the letter she left behind, and only Adrian understood what it meant. She loved him enough to leave. Adrian did not remember falling to his knees. He only remembered the cold, the kind that did not come from weather, but from something inside him collapsing all at once. Ruby was gone. The river air still smelled like her. The dirt on the path still held footprints that were slowly filling with wind-blown leaves. Her absence felt louder than any thunderstorm he had ever stood in. He stood there long after she disappeared into the trees, long after the sky shifted from morning gray to winter gold. When he finally forced himself to move his body, felt heavier, slower, as if grief had filled his bones with wet cement. He walked back to the shelter, stumbling more than once, ignoring the cameras, the reporters, the questions, the noise. Jonah met him at the gate, holding a letter with shaking hands. She left this. Adrian snatched the envelope and tore it open with a desperation that made Jonah look away. The letter was short. Adrian, I love you more than I ever expected to love anyone, but loving you means protecting you, not hurting you. I cannot be the thing they used to ruin your life. I cannot watch them rip apart everything around you because of me. You must free yourself before you can choose a life not shaped by them. I will come back when it is safe, when you are free, and when we can stand together without fear. Ruby Adrian pressed the paper to his forehead, breathing raggedly. Jonah whispered, I am so sorry, man. Adrian looked up with a hollow steadiness that scared Jonah. Find out where she went. Jonah blinked. I do not think she wants to be found. Adrian stepped closer, the determination in his eyes sharp enough to cut steel. That is unfortunate. Because I am going after her. He spent the next hours in motion like a man possessed. First, he checked every place Ruby might have gone in Portland. The little riverside overlook she loved. The coffee shop where she bought hot chocolate for the volunteers. The thrift store where she once bought a $5 raincoat. But every place felt wrong without her. Every place felt empty. Reporters followed him, cameras clicking, drones buzzing overhead. He ignored them. They shouted questions. What happened? Did Ruby leave you? Is she guilty? Did she manipulate you? What did she steal? Did she ruin your family? Adrian did not answer a single one. He only said, I am looking for someone who matters. And he kept walking. He drove to every shelter within 50 miles, showing staff her picture, asking if they had seen her. Some shook their heads. Some recognized her from the news and looked frightened. One woman whispered, If she is running from the Westbrooks, then she is smarter than most people I know. But no one had seen her. He stopped at gas stations, diners, rest stops along I-5 asking cashiers if a woman with auburn hair and tired eyes had passed through. A kid working a late shift at a 24-hour coffee stand said, "I think I saw someone who looked like her, but I cannot be sure." Adrian bought 3 coffees just to thank him. Night fell. Adrian had been awake for nearly 36 hours, but exhaustion did not matter, fear did not matter, reputation did not matter. Only finding her mattered. Around midnight, he drove north until he reached a small Washington town where Ruby once said she had grown up summer hiking with a cousin. It was the kind of place with only one blinking stoplight and a diner that never closed. Adrian walked in with the letter in his hand, his clothes damp from fog, his eyes dark with sleeplessness. The waitress behind the counter looked at him carefully, recognizing him instantly. "You are that runaway groom," she said, not unkindly. Adrian nodded once. "Have you seen her?" He slid a photo across the counter. The waitress studied it, then shook her head. "No, honey, but she looks like someone trying to disappear. People like that head to the coast." Adrian whispered, "Thank you," and left her a 50 for a $5 cup of coffee. He drove west until the world smelled like salt water and cedar trees. In one town, he walked along the pier asking fishermen if they had seen a woman like Ruby. In another town, he stood on the beach letting the cold Pacific wind hit him until his eyes stung and he thought he might finally be able to breathe without breaking. But she was nowhere. Every failure gnawed at him. Every mile made him feel farther away. Yet something in Ruby's letter kept him going. "I will come back when it is safe." That meant she still planned to return. That meant she still wanted him. That meant he was not too late. On the 3rd day, Adrian stepped into a tiny roadside shop that sold fishing gear and raincoats. A bell on the door jingled. The owner glanced up, squinted, then turned to the small TV on the counter where Adrian's face was plastered on the news. "Well, well," he muttered. "Did not expect royalty in boots out here." Adrian ignored the comment. "Have you seen her?" He showed the picture. The owner frowned, thinking deeply. Then his eyes brightened. "Actually, yes. 2 days ago. She bought a rain jacket and a first aid kit. Did not talk much, but she looked like she had not slept." Adrian's heart slammed into his ribs. "Which direction?" The owner pointed toward the coast, out toward Haven Point. Tiny town. Only one rescue shelter out there. Adrian thanked him breathlessly and ran to his car. He drove faster than the law allowed, eyes burning, focused only on the road and the thought that he might be close to her. The sun had already started setting when he reached Haven Point. It was a quiet coastal village with narrow streets and houses painted in soft ocean colors. The sound of waves echoed between buildings. Adrian parked near the pier and walked toward the water, searching every face. And then it happened. He saw a small video playing on someone's phone as they passed him. He froze. Ruby. It was Ruby. Hair tied back, sleeves rolled up, kneeling beside a dog with an injured paw. A little kid recorded her asking questions while she gently examined the animal. Her voice soft, her smile tired but real. The caption read, "Kind stranger. Helps dog on the beach." Adrian felt his heart lurch painfully. She was here. She was close. She was alive. And she was still herself. The kid's mother noticed his expression and paused. "You know her?" Adrian nodded, unable to speak. The woman offered a sympathetic smile. "She volunteers at the small rescue up the hill," Adrian whispered. "Thank you." And he ran, not walked, not hurried. Ran. Up the narrow road toward the rescue building that sat overlooking the ocean. His breath tore at his chest. His hands shook. His heart pounded with something bigger than fear, hope. The first real hope he had felt since she left. He reached the top of the hill, breathless, staring at the warm light spilling from the windows. And he whispered her name into the evening air, Ruby. Ruby did not expect Haven Point to feel like another world, but from the moment she arrived it carried a different kind of quiet. Quiet that did not chase her. A quiet that did not watch her. Quiet that did not try to turn her into a headline. The small coastal rescue center was nothing like the one in Portland. It was tucked behind rolling dunes painted a fading soft blue with wind chimes made from seashells whispering whenever the breeze touched them. Inside, it smelled like cedar chips and warm blankets, and the animals looked up with gentle curiosity instead of fear. The woman who ran it, Nora, was in her late 50s with silver hair pulled into a braid and eyes that saw straight through people. She did not ask Ruby for her last name, did not ask for her past, did not even flinch when Ruby showed up exhausted, mud-stained, and trying not to cry. Instead, Nora simply said, "You look like someone trying to breathe." "The ocean helps with that," Ruby whispered. "Thank you," then helped her change bandages on a limping shepherd mix as if she had been working there for years. Days passed in a soft blur. Ruby swept floors, fed cats, carried supplies, and took long walks on the beach after sunset, letting the coastline chill wash over her worries. The sea air was cold but gentle, like it knew she was fragile and pressed lightly instead of harshly. At night, she stayed in a tiny room above the shelter with a skylight that let moonlight spill across her bed. For the first time in days, she slept without hearing reporters or camera clicks or her own heartbeat pounding with fear. Still, every morning she woke with the same ache in her chest. Adrian. His name sat quietly inside her like a warm bruise. She missed him. Not just the way he held her or kissed her, but the way he looked at her like she was the first real choice he had ever made. She missed his stubbornness, his vulnerability, his gentleness hidden behind years of survival. She missed the way he said her name like it mattered. But the dynasty had swallowed him whole the moment she left. She told herself she had done the right thing. She told herself she had protected him. She told herself she had saved the shelter. She told herself she had spared him the storm. But every self-reassurance felt like writing with water. It vanished as soon as it formed. Still, she stayed invisible. She avoided news. She used cash instead of cards. She kept her hair tied back and worn under a cap when she needed groceries. She made herself a ghost for his sake. Then, everything changed because of a child. One windy afternoon, Ruby was on the beach gathering driftwood when she heard the sharp, frightened cry of a little boy. She turned immediately. A kid about 7 years old sprinted toward her, tears streaking his cheeks. Miss, please help." Ruby dropped everything and knelt. Hey, breathe." "What happened?" He gulped in air, pointing toward the dunes. "My dog Cooper. He got hurt, and I cannot get him out, and I was scared to go back alone. Please, can you help him, please?" Ruby stood in a heartbeat. "Course, show me." The boy grabbed her hand and tugged her through the sand until they reached a hollow behind tall grass where a golden retriever lay, whining, his paw twisted under him. Ruby knelt, instantly assessing the angle. "Okay, sweetheart," she murmured softly, running her hand along the dog's shoulder. "I know it hurts. Let me help." She worked slowly, carefully checking for breaks, reassuring the boy every few seconds. When she gently freed the dog's paw, the retriever whimpered but leaned into her touch, trusting her completely. She fashioned a temporary wrap from her scarf, lifted the dog's weight with practiced ease, and smiled at the boy. "Let us get him to Nora." The boy sighed in relief, wiping his tears with his sleeve. "You are like a real-life hero," he whispered. Ruby smiled softly, not feeling like one at all. As they walked back, the boy pulled out his phone. "I am going to show my mom how brave Cooper was." He recorded a small clip, Cooper limping next to Ruby, his tail wagging weakly. Ruby laughed gently. "Cooper is the brave one. I am just the hands." The boy giggled. "You are nice. People online like videos of nice stuff." Ruby froze. "Please do not post it. Please." But kids operated on instinct, not strategy. He had already hit upload before her voice reached him. It was a 15-second clip. Harmless, sweet, gentle. Ruby rescuing a dog while the ocean glowed behind her. She breathed slowly, trying not to panic. Maybe no one would see it. Maybe it would get buried under noise. Maybe it would vanish like every other small moment in the world. She was wrong. The video did not vanish. It exploded. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was tender. It spread across Haven Point first, then across Oregon, then across dog lover pages, then across TikTok, then across the nation. People captioned it, "She saved a dog, and my heart, or the world, needs more people like her, or whoever she is, protect her at all costs." Ruby saw none of it, but one person did, Adrian. He was in a cramped motel room near the Washington-Oregon border, his laptop open to news alerts, his body shaking with exhaustion when the video autoplayed on the screen. He froze. The ocean, the retriever, the child's small voice. And then her, Ruby. Hair, pulled back sweatshirt flecked with sand, steady, calm, compassionate, beautiful in ways that hurt to look at because he had missed her like breath. Adrian felt his heart break and rebuild at the same time. "She is alive," he whispered, "and not just alive. She is herself, still saving everyone she touches." He pressed a hand to the screen, trembling, and closed his eyes. She had said she needed to disappear. She had said she needed space to protect him. But now he had a direction, a breadcrumb, a trace of the woman he loved, and he was not going to lose her again. Meanwhile, Ruby swept the shelter's porch that evening, unaware of the storm her kindness had stirred. Nora stepped out beside her, handing her a cup of tea. "There is something different in your eyes today," Nora murmured. Ruby smiled faintly. "Maybe I am finally breathing again." Nora looked toward the beach, her voice gentle. "Or maybe someone out there is breathing because he found you." Ruby startled, glancing up sharply. "What do you mean?" Nora shrugged with knowing softness. "When hearts are tied, they pull even across miles." Ruby swallowed hard, feeling something shift in the wind. She did not know why, but she suddenly felt it. The world had changed. Something was moving toward her. Someone. And that someone had her whole heart in his hands. Adrian reached Haven Point just after dawn, the sky washed in pale gold, the ocean breathing slowly below the cliffs as if welcoming him to the one place that still held any meaning. He parked the car crookedly without noticing his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles ached. He had watched Ruby's video at least 50 times through the night. Every time he tried to rest his eyes, the image of her kneeling beside that frightened dog would flash back in his mind, soft and steady and heartbreakingly hers. She was here, somewhere close. He could feel it like a hum under his skin. He stepped out of the car and scanned the small coastal town. A bakery with a crooked sign, a pier touched by sunrise, a row of pastel houses looking out over the ocean, and there on the hill a small building painted blue. The rescue center. His heartbeat kicked painfully. He started climbing the hill, each step heavier than the one before it, as though the universe wanted to test how badly he wanted her back. When he reached the porch, his breath caught. Through the window, he saw her, Ruby. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot, a smudge of sand on her cheek gently adjusting a bandage on the golden retriever she had saved. Her eyes were calm but tired, as if she had been holding herself upright with nothing but force of will. The sight of her hit him so hard he had to grab the doorframe just to stay standing. Nora appeared behind him quietly. "You must be Adrian." He turned sharply. She smiled gently. "She said you might come." Adrian's throat tightened. Is she okay?" Nora nodded slowly. "She is hurting, and she misses you." Adrian exhaled shakily. "May I?" Nora interrupted with a raised hand. "Before you go in, you should know something. The reporters followed you." Adrian spun toward the hill. Tiny figures, camera crews, drones, and vans were already forming at the bottom of the road. He felt sick. No, not here. Not where she is safe. Nora put a steady hand on his arm. "If you walk in that door, and she sees you with all of them behind you, she will run again." Adrian felt the truth of it like a blade. He swallowed hard. "Then what do I do?" Nora's eyes softened with something wise and old and painfully gentle. "You tell the truth. Not to her, to them." Adrian's breath trembled. "Tell them what?" Nora stepped back, giving him space. "That you love her." Adrian felt his heart lurch. But if I speak to the press, it will explode again. It will drag her right back into the nightmare. Nora shook her head, or it will free her from it. That is your choice to make. That morning, Haven Point woke to the sound of dozens of news vans climbing the hill. Journalists spilling out with microphones and cameras ready to devour another scandal. Ruby heard the noise before she saw it. She stepped out onto the porch and froze when she saw the swarm of cameras, and in the middle of them, standing on the slope, his clothes wrinkled from days of traveling, his hair wind-tossed, his face unshaven, his eyes full of something raw, was Adrian. Her breath broke. No, not here, not again. She started to step back inside, but Nora placed a hand on her wrist. Wait. Listen. Ruby stared at Nora in panic. He cannot be here. They will destroy him. Nora whispered gently. Maybe he came here so he would not destroy you. Ruby froze. Down the hill, a reporter shouted, Adrian Westbrook. Do you have a comment about the woman you fled with? Another shouted, Is Ruby Hale hiding with you? Adrian looked straight at them, then straight up the hill at Ruby. Their eyes locked across the distance. Ruby felt something inside her chest twist so tightly she thought she might collapse. Adrian stepped forward. His voice, when he spoke, was calm, steady, devastatingly clear. I was not running from Ruby Hale, he said. I was running toward her. The reporters erupted in noise. Ruby's hand flew to her mouth. Adrian lifted his voice above the shouting. You want your story. Fine. Here it is. I did not flee a wedding because I was manipulated. I fled because my entire life had been controlled by people who treated me like a transaction. The only person who ever treated me like a human being is Ruby. Not my family, not my shareholders, not the dynasty. Her. Ruby felt tears sting her eyes. Adrian continued, his voice gaining strength. Ruby Hale saved me that night on the highway. She saved me again when she took me to her shelter. She saved me again when she told the truth, even when the world tried to twist it. And she saved me when she walked away so I would not be destroyed by the people who claimed to love me. The reporters fell silent one by one as his words cut through the air sharper than any headline. Adrian looked up at Ruby again, his voice breaking. She was not the reason I ran. She was the reason I finally stopped. Ruby whispered his name without realizing it. Adrian took a shaky breath. I do not care how powerful my family is. I do not care what they try to do to me, or to her. I am done running from them, and I am done hiding how I feel. His voice cracked completely. I love her. The world seemed to stop. Even the ocean paused in its rhythm. The reporters leaned closer, the microphones trembling in their hands. Ruby felt her entire soul unraveling. Adrian continued softer now, but somehow the words carried more force than anything he had said yet. I love Ruby Hale. Not because she helped me, not because she saved me, not because she was kind, but because she saw me when no one else ever did, and I am not leaving until she knows that. Ruby felt the floor of the porch give under her feet even though she had not moved. Nora squeezed her hand. Go to him, sweetheart. Ruby stepped forward slowly, every part of her shaking. The reporters turned their cameras toward the porch. Ruby ignored all of them. She walked down the hill, step by step, her eyes never leaving Adrian's. Adrian looked like a man who had crossed fire just to breathe next to her. When she reached him, he whispered, Ruby, I am sorry for every hurt that followed you because of me. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. Adrian, no. You are the only thing that did not hurt. He exhaled a trembling breath. Ruby Hale, I told the world how I feel, but I need to know how you feel. Do you want me here? Ruby's voice cracked open with truth. I never wanted you to leave. Adrian's breath broke. His hands reached toward her, then stopped as if waiting for permission. Ruby closed the distance and pressed her forehead to his. I love you, Adrian. The cameras exploded in flashes. The reporters erupted again, but Ruby heard none of it. All she felt was the steady warmth of his hands on her back. All she heard was the ocean. All she knew was that after all the running, all the fear, all the chaos, they had finally stepped into the truth together. Ruby had never felt the world close in and open up at the same time, but that was exactly what happened the moment she whispered, "I love you," into Adrian's chest. The ocean kept breathing behind them. The wind tugged at her hair. Cameras flashed like frantic lightning. Reporters shouted her name over and over. Yet none of it felt real. Only Adrian's trembling hands on her waist. Only the warmth of his forehead against hers. Only the way he breathed her name like it was the first safe thing he had ever known. But the moment she pulled back, reality crashed in like a wave. The shouting grew sharper. The cameras zoomed closer. And every instinct Ruby had ever trusted screamed that danger was already tearing its way toward them. Adrian sensed it too. He pulled her gently behind him, turning toward the crowd with protective fierceness. "Give her space. Back up. She is not answering anything." Ruby watched the reporters surge forward like a tide of microphones and hungry eyes. Someone yelled, "Miss Hale, are you returning to him for the money?" Another yelled, "Do you admit to sabotaging the marriage contract?" Someone else shouted, "Are you frightened being with the Westbrook heir?" Adrian's jaw tightened, but Ruby squeezed his hand, whispering, "It is okay. I can stand on my own." He turned to her with raw fear in his eyes. "You do not have to. Not anymore." She gave him a soft, heartbreaking smile. "That is not the point. I have to choose this, not hide from it, not run from it, not let fear control it. Choose it. Choose you. Choose us." Adrian swallowed hard like her words cut straight into the deepest wound inside him. She turned toward the reporters, slowly lifting her chin. The cameras zoomed in instantly, making her feel like her entire soul was under a microscope. She forced her breath to steady. "I did not manipulate Adrian. I did not help him escape anything. He made his own choices, and so am I." The reporters erupted with more questions, but Ruby held up a steady hand. "Let me finish. The world has been painting me as someone who wanted his money, someone who wanted attention, someone who played a role in a merger I did not even know existed. None of that is true. Not then, not now, not ever." She glanced at Adrian, who looked at her with quiet devotion and guilt and something even deeper. Ruby's voice softened. "What I want is a life that is honest. Not one shaped by fear, not one shaped by power, not one shaped by dynasties that think they control stories that do not belong to them." Adrian stepped closer, offering silent strength. Ruby breathed deeply. "The truth is simple. I love him. Not his money, not his legacy, not his name. Him." Adrian looked like the words knocked the air out of him. But Ruby was not done. "Loving him means choosing a life that terrifies me. It means stepping into a spotlight I never asked for. It means being targeted by people who have the power to erase me if they want. It means risking the safety I built for myself. It means risking the life I had in Portland. It means risking the future I thought was solid. And it means risking my heart." The crowd quieted slowly as the weight of her words settled over them. Ruby continued, her voice tightening with truth. "Love is not easy when the entire world is watching. It is not easy when dynasties want to bury you. It is not easy when every step you take is twisted into a headline. It is not easy when your private pain becomes public entertainment." Adrian whispered, "Ruby, you do not have to explain this to them." She shook her head. "But I have to explain it to myself." She looked into the cameras again, her voice trembling. "The easy choice would have been to disappear forever. Build a quiet life where no one could find me, no one could hurt me, no one could twist the truth. But that would also mean leaving the one person who stood beside me even when the entire country turned against me." Her breath shook. "I am tired of running. I am tired of letting dynasties decide who I am. I am tired of letting fear write the story for me." Adrian reached for her hand, and this time she let him take it fully, their fingers threading together like something inevitable. Ruby whispered the truth so softly the reporters had to lean in to hear it. "So I choose him." Adrian's eyes shined with emotion. She continued, This time, not in the dark, not in hiding, not in fear, but in the open. On my terms. They both turned as a loud engine approached. A sleek black car pulled up fast. Too fast. Adrian stiffened. Ruby felt a chill crawl up her spine. Lionel Westbrook stepped out flanked by 2 board members and a lawyer. The crowd parted around them like a wound opening. The reporters gasped and surged forward again, but Lionel raised a hand, silencing them with a mere gesture. His eyes were fury wrapped in wealth, wrapped in pride. Adrian stood taller. "Do not do this." Lionel ignored him completely. His icy blue gaze locked onto Ruby. "Miss Hale, you are making a critical mistake." Ruby straightened her shoulders. "Loving your son is not a mistake." Lionel's jaw flexed. "You do not understand the consequence of involving yourself in matters that exceed your station." Adrian snapped. "Dad, stop. She is not an object. She is not your casualty." Lionel's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You are the heir to a multi-billion-dollar empire. You cannot tether yourself to a woman who will drag this family through the mud." Adrian stepped in front of Ruby protectively. "I do not care about the empire." Lionel's eyes narrowed. "You will. You always do." Adrian breathed slowly, gathering the courage Ruby once gave him. "No, I choose her." Lionel's expression froze, turning to cold rage. "Then you are no son of mine." Ruby felt Adrian's breath hitch, but he did not move. He did not back down. He only tightened his hold on her hand as if anchoring himself to the one truth he had left. Ruby squeezed back. Adrian whispered, "You do not owe him anything." Lionel scoffed. "You think you can challenge a dynasty with love and stray animals?" Ruby stared straight at him, her voice quiet but unbreakable. "I think love has toppled bigger dynasties than yours." For the first time, Lionel hesitated. The cameras caught everything. His cruelty, his threat, his dismissal, and Ruby's refusal to bow. The public narrative started shifting right there in front of them. Ruby felt the shift inside herself too. The fear was still there, but something stronger had finally taken root. A choice. A real one. One she made freely without running. Adrian turned to her, his voice breaking. "Ruby, are you sure?" She nodded, tears in her eyes but strength in her voice. "I choose you." Adrian closed his eyes with relief, then pulled her into his arms, ignoring the cameras, the shouting, the dynasty unraveling behind them. Ruby whispered against his chest, "And I am not going anywhere." The scandal did not vanish overnight, but something shifted the moment Ruby stood at Adrian's side in front of the cameras and refused to run. People across the country watched the confrontation replayed on every news channel. They watched Lionel's cruelty. They watched Adrian break from the dynasty. They watched Ruby stand her ground with a voice that trembled but never broke. And for the first time since the nightmare began, public opinion tilted in their favor. But even with that shift, Ruby felt the weight of everything she and Adrian had endured settle into her bones like a long storm, finally calming. The next morning, Adrian stood on the porch of the Haven Point Rescue Center staring out at the ocean as if searching for a horizon he could trust again. Ruby stepped beside him holding 2 mugs of tea. He took one with a soft thank you, his fingers brushing hers. They stood in silence for a moment before Adrian spoke. "What happens now?" Ruby watched a pelican glide low over the waves. "Now we figure out what a life not shaped by fear looks like." Adrian's breath hitched a little. "I have never had that." Ruby looked at him gently. "Then let us build it." They moved slowly at first, as if the fragile air between them needed time to learn how to hold joy again. Adrian helped Nora fix a broken fence behind the shelter, even though he clearly had no idea how to use a power drill. Ruby laughed quietly every time he fumbled with the screws. In the afternoons, he walked the dogs along the shoreline with her. They talked about simple things, favorite foods, childhood memories, movies. They loved songs they secretly cried to alone in their cars. Conversations that felt like small threads weaving into something warm and real. The world watched from a distance, but Haven Point protected them like a small pocket of quiet. Reporters tried to get close again, but the town shut them out. Fishermen told them to get lost. The bakery put up a sign that said, "No media." Locals formed a circle of loyalty around Ruby and Adrian, a kind of community armor neither of them expected. And then there was the flash drive. They had not forgotten it. One night after dinner, Ruby and Adrian sat on the floor of her tiny room above the shelter, the flash drive between them like an unopened door. Ruby whispered, "Are you ready?" Adrian stared at it a long moment, then shook his head. "But let us do it anyway." They inserted it into Ruby's old laptop. The screen flickered to life, and there they were, Lionel Westbrook and Harold Armitage sitting at the head of a boardroom table planning the merger like it was a chess match. Their voices were clear, cold, unapologetic. Adrian's role was described like a pawn, Elise like a decorative piece, the wedding like a business acquisition. Adrian's stomach twisted. "There it is," he said quietly. "Proof that none of it was ever about love or choice." Ruby placed her hand over his. "Proof that they took everything from you, but you took it back." They contacted Elise, who agreed to publicly verify the video. She recorded a statement explaining how she had been pressured, too. When the video leaked through a journalist who had quietly supported them all along, everything changed. The dynasty cracked. Shareholders demanded accountability. Board members resigned. Lionel found himself under investigation for unethical corporate practices. Adrian watched the news with quiet disbelief. "It feels strange," he murmured, "like the world is burning and I am not the one inside the fire anymore." Ruby slid her fingers into his. "You stepped out. You chose something else. You chose yourself." He looked at her. "No, I chose you." As the dynasty unraveled, Adrian made the decision he had been circling for weeks. He returned to Portland not to reclaim the company, but to resign from it. Cameras waited for him at the entrance to Westbrook Tower. He walked past them with his shoulders straight, his gaze steady. When he reached the press podium inside the lobby, he spoke without notes. "My name is Adrian Westbrook, and this statement is my last act as part of this empire." He looked out at the room filled with reporters and former board members. "I will not lead a company that destroys people to protect its own image. I will not be part of a dynasty that treats humans like currency. I choose a different life, and I hope the next leadership chooses integrity over power." The press fired questions at him, but he simply bowed his head once and left. Outside the building, Ruby waited, leaning against a street lamp, wearing her Haven Point hoodie with her hair messy from the wind. Adrian reached her and exhaled shakily. "It is done." Ruby touched his cheek gently. "And now you get to be who you were meant to be." They drove back to Haven Point together, and the small town reacted with quiet kindness. The bakery gifted Adrian a box of warm cinnamon rolls. Nora cried a little and hugged him like he was one of the rescued animals. The ocean breeze felt different when they stood together. Softer, freer. 6 months later, everything had changed, but in the gentlest way. The Haven Point Rescue Center expanded after donations poured in from people who had followed their story and believed in Ruby's work. Adrian used his severance funds not for himself, but to create the Westbrook Animal Rescue Fund dedicated entirely to shelters like the one that had given Ruby a home when she had nowhere left to go. Ruby became its director, her face glowing with purpose instead of fear. Elise visited often, building a life that finally belonged to her. She and Ruby would talk on the porch, laughing about things that once would have broken them. Adrian, meanwhile, found joy in small things he had never been allowed to enjoy, taking the dogs for sunrise runs, learning to fix torn fences, sketching new ideas for community programs, while Ruby leaned against his shoulder. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Ruby and Adrian walked along the same stretch of road where they had first collided months earlier. The ocean wind brushed Ruby's hair across her face. Adrian gently tucked it behind her ear. "This road," he murmured, "has always felt like the beginning of everything." Ruby smiled softly. Maybe because it was. He took her hands, his eyes warm with something deep and steady. "Ruby, I made choices my whole life because I was afraid of disappointing people, because I thought I owed the world something, but the only choice that ever felt real was you." Ruby felt her breath catch. Adrian continued, voice tender. "I used to run from everything, but not anymore, so I need to know. After everything we survived, are you done running too?" Ruby stepped closer until her forehead rested against his. "I stopped running the moment you found me in Haven Point." Adrian's breath trembled as he whispered the one question that held their whole future. "Can I walk beside you this time? Not behind you. Not toward you. Beside you." Ruby smiled with her entire heart. "You already are." And as the sun set behind them, painting the road in gold, they walked forward, not running, not hiding, not afraid, building a life that finally belonged to them. If you are still here after this long storm of love and loss and running and returning, then maybe a part of you felt exactly what Ruby and Adrian felt. Maybe you know what it is like to care for someone when the world tells you not to. Maybe you know how heavy fear can be, how loud doubt can get, and how powerful a single choice can become. Before you go, I want to ask you something that only you can answer. If you were Ruby that night on the highway, would you have stopped for a stranger soaked in rain, not knowing he was a billionaire groom trying to escape the life chosen for him? If you were Adrian, standing in front of the cameras with the entire country watching, would you have had the courage to speak the truth of your heart out loud? These are the questions that shape us not just in stories, but in life. Stories like this remind us of how fragile people can be and how strong they become when someone chooses them. Ruby did not save Adrian because he was rich or because she wanted anything from him. She saved him because someone needed saving, and she did not yet know she needed saving too. And maybe you reading this now have been Ruby once in your life, or maybe you have been Adrian carrying a past that felt too heavy until someone finally saw you. If their story meant something to you, even in a small way, let me know in the comments. Tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Was it the night Ruby picked him up in the rain? Was it the chase through the diner, the shelter, the sacrifice, the goodbye at the river, or the public confession where he finally said the words the world was not ready to hear? I read your comments, every single one. Tell me where you are watching from. Tell me if you want a sequel or a side story. Tell me if you want to see what happens when two people who were never meant to meet decide to build a life anyway. If you loved Ruby's strength and Adrian's transformation, tell me which character you connected with most. And if you want more billionaire romance stories that mix chaos with tenderness, danger with safety, fear with healing, and broken people choosing each other even when the world tries to break them apart, then make sure you subscribe and stay with me for the next journey. Your comments guide the next story. Your likes help the channel grow. Your presence here tells YouTube this story mattered. So, if you have a moment, tap the like button. It is free and it changes everything for a storyteller like me. And if you want more stories that feel like late-night conversations, rain-soaked beginnings, hard choices, soft endings, second chances, runaway billionaires, working-class heroines, and the kind of love that asks for nothing except the bravery to stay, then you are in the right place. Let me know in the comments with just one word. Stay. If enough of you say it, I will begin writing their next chapter. Until then, remember this. Love is not about running, it is about choosing. And when you choose someone with both fear and courage in your chest, that is when love matters most. Thank you for being here. Tell me when you are ready for the next story.